There's a great saying, an old adage that I'm sure a lot of you know, and that is, the more I learn, the less I realize that I know. And no more is that evident than in sports medicine. This field is just exploding with knowledge, and things are just changing so rapidly. If you're not keeping up constantly, it's gonna pass you by. And I always say, well, I try to keep these videos very up to date. I always say in my videos, if I am proven wrong by something, or if my opinion changes, or if I change the way I'm practicing and what I'm recommending to my patients, I will make a video on it. I have no problem admitting when I am wrong because, you know, oftentimes if you've been practicing medicine, especially sports medicine, long enough, you're gonna continuously get proven wrong because the science is just gonna evolve. And so this right here is that video. Now, I've been working on this wide anatomic toe box video for a while now. There's been a lot of really good research that has come out, and I'd say the last 2.5 years, there's also been some real garbage that has come out in the last 2.5 years. I've kind of been able to see kind of where things are going and what the good science is showing. Yeah, got some really interesting and I think some really exciting things you're gonna wanna know about for these shoes, and I think some things that we need to be screaming at the rooftops to some shoe companies. So let's get right into it. Okay, but before I get into what I was proven wrong about wide anatomic and foot-shaped shoes and foot-shaped toe boxes, you probably should know what a wide versus an anatomic or foot-shaped shoe is, because it might not be what you think, and there's also so much variability between even just shoes that are considered anatomic or foot-shaped and also shoes that are considered wide. There's just as much variability of those as there is in a standard shoe. Now, a foot-shaped shoe or an anatomic toe box shoe is simply a shoe that is made to be the shape of what that company believes is the ideal foot shape, or the most quote-unquote natural foot shape. There is a huge problem with that statement though, because everybody has a different foot shape. No one has the same foot, right? Even on left versus right feet on the same people. And there is no normal, it's just what's normal for you. And so there can be huge variability between companies that make a shoe that is quote unquote foot shaped or anatomic. So when you go to the store, or when you're looking at marketing materials or advertising, someone says, we have the most naturally shaped foot, it's gonna give you the most natural foot strike, it's gonna be the best shape, the most ideal shape for your foot. That doesn't mean anything. That just means that that's their opinion, right? So versus, like I say, if you're in a zero shoe or an ultra shoe or some other wide toe box type shoe, or sorry, not wide, anatomic toe box shoe, you still need to try them on. You still need to see if it actually fits your foot. Now that is different than a wide toe box shoe. Now all a wide toe box shoe is a shoe that has a toe box that is wider than their standard last or their standard shaped shoe. So it can still be pointy, right? It might be a little bit more rounded off like you see here in the Nike and the Keen here, but all it is just wider than whatever that company's standard last is. So I'm sure you've probably seen some shoes where they're advertised as wide, it's the wide version, you put it on and it's scrunching your feet in like a vice. It's because it's just wide for them. So remember, if you are in the market for a wide or anatomic toe box shoe, just remember, not all of them are going to work for you. You still have to find one that matches your foot. I've had anatomic toe box shoes that have scrunched my feet more than a standard shoe. I mean, they've been way more uncomfortable. I've had others. They're absolutely fantastic. So when you hear me talk about the things that I was wrong about, the things I feel like I'm wrong about are dealing with wide anatomic toe box shoes. So the rest of this video, you can consider a standard shoe when I talk about a standard tapered shoe, or a shoe company's version of a wide shoe, like a New Balance 2E or 4E or things like that. Now, the other thing you might not know about foot-shaped shoes or anatomic shoes is that they are absolutely nothing new. They actually came about in between two different trends of standard or narrow type toe box shoes. Now, of course, narrow toe box shoes goes all the way back to aristocrats back in Europe, where if you had a long enough and pointy enough shoe, it signaled, now this is great. Because people ask me all the time, where do standard toe box shoes come from? Is there some science behind it? No, of course not. It was back in Europe when, as the toe box got longer and more pointed, it signaled that you did not need to walk to work. It symboled that you did not need to be on your feet to work. So actually they were a symbol of, I don't need to use my feet, right? Whereas people that were working hard usually had their shoes made to they were just sewn around their foot. Those were the first anatomic or foot-shaped shoes. They were happening right alongside this. It's just that as a status symbol and a symbol of wealth, people wanted to have their shoes more tapered. Getting up into the years, as more civilizations became industrialized, as supply chains started getting more and more efficient, instead of molding them around each individual shoe, because that was getting more and more expensive and to cut costs, what would they do? They started making steel forms, right, or metal forms for the shoes to go in to last the shoes. And what is the easiest shape to do? Not an anatomic shape, right, where it kind of, flares in around the big toe, and you might have a little bit of a bump out here. No, it's just this, right? It's a shape like this right here. And so that's how you got a tapered shoe, because it was just cheaper to make. And I think maybe that is probably still the case these days, that it is still a little bit cheaper to make. Now, there's also some evidence out there that, that you can have a shoe that is too wide, and we'll get to that in a second. But where this all came from, wide anatomic toe box shoes have been around just as long as really anything else. It's just, the status symbol versus comfort was winning out. So I've basically been saying since the jump that too wide of a shoe can be just as much of a problem as too narrow of a shoe. And now we finally have a definition for that. And that is wide and then sloppy wide. There's a big difference. So what we found is, and this is a great example with Asics in the Gel Resolution line. In the Gel Resolution 9, which is largely considered one of the most popular tennis shoes ever made, it was so secure in the midfoot and the rear foot. It was just like an extension of your leg. It felt, if you haven't tried one yet, you're a tennis, pickleball player, outdoor basketball player, go find one on resale. They are one of the most incredible shoes ever made. Now, the toe box of them was just pretty standard. There really wasn't anything crazy about it. In the Gel Resolution 10, you can see that now they made this high-walled medial side. They wanted to make it a mid, because they just wanted to do something different for their 10th anniversary. Well, to put all this material in, they widened out, they basically cored out the midfoot of the shoe. They also widened the toe box a little bit, because people were saying, the one complaint about the Gel Resolution 9 is that the toe box is a little constrictive and that it's all made of rubber, so it doesn't break in as easily. Well, they took that as, let's widen this whole thing and all this new material on the shoe. What happened? Everyone started clunking around in the shoe. They started moving around in it. They started jamming their feet. It became really uncomfortable. And it wasn't because they widened the toe box, it was because they widened everything else. And they took out some of the stabilizing elements in the rear foot. They did all these things that made the rest of the shoe not as constrictive. And so people started going and they said, the shoe's too clunky. It's like too wide. I can't get it to fit. And so what the guidelines are now is that you can really make the front part of the shoe kind of do what you want, as long as the midfoot in the shoe and the rear foot in the shoe is still containing, right, and still can cradle the foot. And I think that's the real reason we haven't really seen mass adoption of an anatomic toe box shoes in court sports like basketball, tennis, and pickleball. And that's because you get these companies that are making anatomic toe box shoes, they're making them with, zero drop for better balance, but they're treating the rest of the shoe almost like a barefoot shoe, whereas the barefoot philosophy is that it can crumple and do whatever. That's barefoot shoes, not wide toe box shoes. And so a lot of these shoes also have no constraining elements in the mid and rear foot, and so it's just making the shoe a floppy mess. Okay, and the last point that I was proven right about, which also brings me into what I was proven dead wrong about, is that running shoes should have more of a tapered box, a tapered forefoot, because it allows more efficient push-off, it allows easier push-off power. And although that is true, it is only true for certain running shoes, and those are ones with pre-bent carbon fiber plates. When you have the foot and the shoe act more as one unit and not allow really any splay or any movement, that carbon fiber plate and the foam is allowed to act more as one, like kind of diving board, one propulsive unit, and it does make strike more efficient. So you probably will not see this change in really any super shoe or any speed focused shoe, because this is what is most efficient for the most speed. In terms of a standard running shoe, just a daily trainer, we've really found out now it's dealer's choice, right? So a tapered shoe will allow a little bit easier rolling from pronation back into resupination. And so yes, that is still true, but there are caveats to that, which I'll get to now. Okay, so there was a really excellent study done in 2025 looking at wide toe box shoes versus standard toe box shoes in basketball. And so you can extrapolate that to tennis, pickleball, badminton, volleyball, things like that. And they looked at what are the advantages of a standard tapered shoe versus what are the advantages of a wide or anatomic toe box shoe. And what they found definitively is that wearing a wide or anatomic toe box shoe increased the lever arm of your big toe so much that they found statistical significance with that. Now I know that might not mean a lot to some people, but that is huge. That basically means that what I had considered a disadvantage of a wider anatomic toe box shoe, allowing the foot to splay out more, which will allow more kind of micro motion in the shoe, allow more blistering and decrease in push-off power, actually increases your push-off power with one caveat, that the mid and the rear foot stay stable. And I think that's why you haven't seen this adopted in a shoe like this, like a Kobe 5. Because you look at the Kobe 5, super stable mid and rear foot, right? It's got, it's a ton of paneling, ton of containment. Then look, super tapered in the forefoot. If you took this shoe and just put this box on it, this toe box on it, that right now, according to all the good science, is the ideal basketball shoe. Coincidentally, also the ideal tennis shoe, also the ideal pickleball shoe, volleyball shoe, everything like that. What we've found is that increase in blisters, instability, decreased blood flow in the foot, jamming of the toes, all the clunky movement and everything, it's not the toe box. It's the width in the midfoot. It's the lack of security in the rear foot. And so I talked to some people on the engineering side of this and I said to them, like, can you extrapolate that to running, like a daily trainer? They said, yeah, really, like I said, it's dealer's choice. Either you're gonna get the easier, smooth push off, right, from pronation to resupination with a more tapered box because the foot is just acting more as one unit with the shoe, or you're gonna get the bigger, the increased, longer lever arm of your big toe and you're gonna get propulsion from there. So it's just kind of dealer's choice. So to put a bow on this, the most important things that I was completely wrong about were, number one, wide anatomic toe box shoes do not cause a decrease in performance, especially in court sports. They actually increase it. They do not cause clunky footwork. That's a tongue twister. The mid and the rear foot does. Number two, they do not cause blisters, jamming of the toes, cracked toenails, bloody toenails, decrease in blood flow. That is more the mid and rear foot. And they cannot cause stress fractures. They haven't been shown in the research yet to cause stress fractures. All the studies that were done with shoes with wide anatomic toe boxes were also done on barefoot and minimalist shoes, which yes, do increase stress on those plantar structures. I believe it's like 17 to 18% it can increase, but the anatomic toe box had nothing to do with it. It was the lack of containment, it was the lack of support under the foot. Had nothing to do with the toe box. The secret villain in all of that was, the mid and the rear foot of the shoe. Once again, not this shoe, I'm just using an example, but the mid and the rear foot of the shoe, but that can also be the issue in any other shoe, right? You just take a standard shoe, right? If the mid and the rear foot are not supported, you're gonna get the same issues in this. You could get the same issues in that. So it has nothing to do with the toe box, has everything to do with the rest of the shoe. But the only problem is that at this point, that shoe just isn't being made all that. You can't find a lot of those. They're not being mass produced. And yeah, it might be a cost cutting thing. It just might be, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're gonna do it. And so really, if you get a survey from a shoe company, especially bigger shoe companies, or people ask for feedback, make sure you give them that feedback. That yeah, we love the mid and the rear foot of your shoes, change the forefoot, because it's actually giving people better performance. And now I know we have wide basketball shoes, right? There's companies like New Balance that make their basketball shoes in widths. It's just that even with that, sometimes those can get too sloppy wide for some people because they don't match up with their foot. And so you get too much width in here, right? And so now they're moving around in the shoe too much. And it feels like there's too much room where it's just too much room in certain parts of the shoe. So really, I would say in my estimation at this point, it would be better if we had standard shoe, mid and rear foot, but more along the lines of an anatomic or foot-shaped toe box in the forefoot, not just necessarily width for width's sake, even though, yeah, some people are absolutely gonna love them. I like wider width, just regular shoes. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And like I said, we're getting a lot more of kind of the barefoot shoes. We're getting a lot of the zero drop or lower drop shoes, more options in those. Now we just wanna see more You know, this, and I'm sure it's coming down the line, you know, as, you know, science and then consumer, it kind of trails. But if you want to see what the truth is about low and zero drop shoes and if it's right for you, make sure you click into this video right here. I'll see you in the next one.